one of the reasons I'm running is I think we've lost the notion of what our founding fathers were all about. It was life, liberty, and property. Jefferson, Adams, and Madison, they all said we need to have life, liberty, and property. But the one I like best is Pope Leo XIII. When he describes life, liberty, and property, he says we're all entitled to life, everyone. And he says we're all entitled to be free, that's liberty. If we're going to have life, we've got to be free. And if we want to be free, we need to have property, because without property, we're nothing more than indentured slaves. But Leo takes it one step farther. He describes to you what property is. Property is more than just hard assets. It's when you take God's resources and you combine them with your God-given talents, whatever that result is property. So in other words, he's saying, yes, your assets are your property, your hard assets, your house, your car, your land, but he's also saying your labor is your property. And in this country, since 1913, since Woodrow Wilson, because prior to that, the only taxes we had was an import tariff. Since Wilson since 1913, we now have income taxes and property taxes, which are the two most egregious taxes in my mind. Because what they're doing is they're taking your property from you. Our founding fathers were so concerned about private property rights. Yes, freedom is what they wanted, liberty is what they wanted, and have an independent nation. But they needed property rights, and they knew this. Adams made it clear. He said, if you cannot secure your property, you have no liberty. See how that works? If you don't have property, you don't have liberty, you don't have life. So in my mind, the best tax, the only fair tax, is a sales tax or consumption tax. Because see, the founding fathers made it clear that you're entitled to your property, and the only way anyone can take it from you is by your consent. If you want to consent, then we'll make a deal. So the example I like to use is, I say this pen is worth $5,000. And you're going to look at me and say, Dave, you're just a damn fool. That's not a $5,000 pen. You're going to look at me and say, that's only a $1 pen. But what we're going to do now is we're going to reach consent between the two of us what the value of that pen is. And we're probably going to reach a point where we'll agree that it's $1.50. I'm not going to get my $5,000. But that's when wealth is created, at that moment when you and I make that exchange based on consent. And that's when you want to tax, because that's when the wealth is created, at that moment. And you know what'll happen if the government puts, let's say the government gets wild and puts a 20% tax on things, on this pen. We're going to negotiate this pen clear down to 5 cents now, aren't we? That's how you keep the government in check, and that's how you keep your property in your hands. You just tax that point of exchange that both parties consent to. That, in my mind, is the best and the most fairest way to tax to run this country and run this state.